She's not here. Oh my goodness. And Tran stayed here and helped me learn a couple new tricks on Cami last night, which were so very helpful. Now, along with it being helpful, you guys might not particularly think it's helpful though. She taught me how to split and merge documents in Cami so that instead of each one of my assignments, you know how I have text source 1, then text source 2, text source 3, and they're all separate. Now I know how to put them all together. So your test that's 24 pages, it's one document on there. So I have to click through all different documents. So it doesn't have this long list on Canvas, which looks much better, right? Well, here's where this gets to where the students won't like it. So Miss Daniel's class, past 3 days, have been doing things they shouldn't be doing in all 3 classes. When they went to her class with sub 2 days ago, they didn't do their essay in her class. I'm warning all my students of this. There's a story in here for all my students. To do what you're supposed to do when there's a sub in a classroom. Because in about 3 weeks, you're going to have a sub in my classroom in the morning. Because I have one doctor's appointment they can't make after school. They can only make it in the morning. So I'm going to have to miss my first block and second block that day. And if any student thinks that would be a good time to not do your work, this fate will befall you. So, bless you. Miss Daniel's class did not write their essay like they were supposed to that day in her class. Then they went to Miss Ramita's class yesterday, didn't do what they're supposed to do over there. 2 or 3 different people were on websites they weren't supposed to be on at that time. Then they came to my class and would not calm down and stop talking out of turn. And y'all know what I'm talking about. There's times when you're allowed to talk when you get your work done. And in science, there's times when you can talk amongst each other. But then there's other times you cannot. Y'all know the difference. I'm not that strict. But they would not calm down and stop talking out of turn. And then they kept moving the desk around where I could not hear students' questions and students could not hear me through instruction. And I'm talking all through class with the desks. To the point that by the time I got to 3rd block, my voice was going in and out. And you hear my voice today still sounds kind of foggy. And I kept telling them to stop and they wouldn't, and they thought it was funny. And when we went to line up, I had one student shove into another one, shoving, hard. Went into a 3rd student 12 times. Yeah, we don't play those games.
12?
Yeah, your cousin. That's the 3rd student. One big student shoved into a 2nd student that shoved that student into your cousin 12 times. So I have a solution for that. Obviously, those students, all those students in that class were too bored. So I downloaded a couple packages of educational material for them. The next 2 days in recess, their little bodies are going to be so busy doing multiple page assignments in Cami. Each package will take over an hour to complete. So when they don't get it done during recess, guess what they're going to have? Homework. So let this be your warning. It's already on Cami. All I have to do is copy it over to the other 2 classes. Don't mess around in a class. Clear?
Nice shoes, by the way. I'm not late.
You what?
I'm not late at party. That's a step out. Step out.
You already took your test, right? But they took it though, right? See, the great thing about Canvas is once I have it uploaded into Cami, all I got to do is copy it into the other classes. Right now, it's just in P6 Science or P4 Science. All I have to do is copy it into the other two classes. And teacher pay teacher doesn't cost that much. I didn't care. It's topics that we're going to cover in the last module of science too. These things are going to be on your week test. So you need the information. So just realize that if you get too talkative, that tells me you have too much time on your hands. Please don't do that to yourself. Okie doke? We're good? All right. Let's go to assignments. Today's assignment actually is not that long. So we're going to have time to go back through the quiz again today and go through a good bit of the test. What is it? We're not doing the... Zoom. I am on Zoom. I need to share screen. Megan, can you see Canvas right now?
No, ma'am. I can't see your face.
Okay, why is this being weird? Share screen. There we go. Now can you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so this is our only resource. It's a timeline. You guys saw it briefly yesterday, and we kind of already discussed it. In 1776, it says here only people who owned land could vote, but in reality, who were the only people? Only white men who owned land, because women could not own land. Okay. We women could not be trusted with so much power as to own land. We didn't know how to do that. 1790, white men who own land could vote. Yes, it is. 1856. It's just, I guess they clarified it that white men who own land could vote. 1856, all white men could vote. They didn't have to necessarily own land. 1870, that would be after the Civil War. The 15th Amendment was passed, and African American men got the right to vote. 1920 was when the 19th Amendment passed, and women got the right to vote. Do you recall how many women got out and voted that first time?
8 million.
8 million. 8 million frustrated women went out and voted. 1947, Native Americans were finally able to vote. Y'all see the irony in that? Who was on this land first? Native Americans. And they were the last ones to get the rights to vote in this country. Absolute irony of ironies. 1963 to 1964, voting rights were named civil rights. And it says no citizen could be denied a vote, but the reality of that, no felons and no children. So I'm so sorry, my fourth graders, you cannot go in and vote. I know, makes you so sad.
If you think about it, Native Americans already had land.
They did. They had all the land. They had all the land, but Europeans came in and stole it. Straight up stole it. Especially the British and Spanish. They're real great at that. Very great at that. Masters. All right, so here's the timeline, and next is going to be the worksheet. Okay, this is your only assignment related to today's work. Okay, describe, that's it. Describe how voting rights have expanded from the founding of the United States to the Civil Rights era. Okay, so because you don't have the timeline for you to look at, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to bless you, my child. 1776.
Oh, one more child.
1776. 1790. 1856. 1870. 1920. 1947. 1963, 1964. Okay, so with these two, who could vote?
White man.
White men who what?
Robbery.
Okay. 1856. Who could vote? All white men could vote.
The African American.
Then I'm going to put in parentheses after the Civil War. '15th Amendment. Passed. African American.
Native American.
Hold on. Men could. Good. All right, 1920. What amendment was this? What amendment? 19th Amendment. And what was another name for that?
Women's
Good.
suffrage.
Women's suffrage.
I was gonna say women's sacrifice.
Women have been sacrificing before that. Women allowed to vote. Okay, 1947.
A Native American. Native American.
Okay, 53, 64. What about that one?
Voting
Voting rights declared civil rights. Very good. Take it. Everyone except felons and children can vote. Okay, so you actually have a better timeline there than you had on the notes. Okay? So using that, write your paragraph.
Okay, is this like question? Is this like question number 5?
I need 4 detailed sentences That means you don't have to have all of them, but you're gonna have most of it.
And then what about
Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Your paragraph is gonna have a topic sentence. Four detail sentences. And a concluding sentence. Expanded means how did attendance tight. How did voting rights grow? In other words, it started off that a small amount of the population could vote, and it grew the amount of population that was allowed to vote. Does that make sense? Started off just white men that could vote. Then white men who own land, and then all white men could vote, and then all white men and black men could vote, and then all white men, black men, and women could vote, and then all white men, black men, women, and Native Americans could vote, and now everybody except felons and children could vote. Okay, so it kept growing the percentage of the population that could vote. Does that make sense? That's what they mean by expanded. Okay. What is it, Michaela?
It says 5-sentence it says 5-sentence paragraph, but you.
I know, I'll
just
put
go to
6 because I know. I'll change it in Canvas in just a minute. Yes, sir.
I don't understand. For the 15th Amendment, if any man can vote, then how can a Native American then vote?
They worded it to make it sound more inclusive than it was.
So,
Just like the Declaration said all men, but it wasn't really all men, was it? And when they said men, it makes it really sound like it's all people, but they really meant all white men, even though they didn't say all white men. They make it sound more inclusive than what it really was.
okay, we have to put that. So we only choose 4 of these?
Choose 4. Make sure your sentences are complete sentences. Fruit flies? I don't even know why the school has fruit flies. Okay, I'm gonna go back. This is gonna come down for just a minute because I've got to change this, okay?
Okay.
All right. That was changed in this class from P7. Now I gotta change to P6 and P3. Priya and Hunter are gone today. And by the way, this time it's worth 10 points, okay? And it's going to be another assignment that goes into the fourth 9 weeks. Remember, 5 or 6 sentences isn't 6 lines, it's 6 complete sentences, okay? Yes, please. Missed most of today's assignment. You need to pull up Thursday, March 25th, voting timeline worksheet. We're writing paragraphs based on the timeline that I pretty much wrote for you on the board. ACCEPT. EXCEPT. Yeah, right. EXCEPT. How's that for a new background page? Yes.
I like it.
Shows military and unity. What's that? No, because I have people writing. Yes, it's saying 1963 forward. Okay. Right. What are you doing? Yes, ma'am. You can work on Zern. Have you already done your science and social studies RTI? And you put it over there? Okay. Perfect. Yes. When you're done, hit submit. I told you today's assignment wouldn't be very long. When everybody's finished, then we can go over quiz review again and test review. So that clever pops up on you guys too?
What clever? Yeah.
Because it pops up on us teachers all the time too. I'm like, oh, go away. Clever comes up because of Zern. Because it pops up on us teachers every time we open up ClassLink.
Oh yeah, that happens.
Okay, who is still writing the paragraph? Okay.
I have one more sentence to do.
My little Tratorius granddaughter came over last night. I said Tratorius because she wanted absolutely nothing to do with grandma. Even though grandma ordered 3 flamingo books, and flamingo stuffed animal was ready to read to her, and she wanted none of it. She wanted her uncles to run after her in the hallway, which is what she got. Ran up and down the hallway with dogs and her uncles. All that. Parents and uncles are fun when they're young because they will chase the little dog and all of stuff. test coming up. 2 pictures of Adrian in uniform. That's your Miss Fanny, that was one of the things she showed me yesterday. Showed me camiapp.com, and that's where all my stuff was. She said, have you gone to camiapp.com before? I said, no. She said, here, let me show you something. And all my stuff popped up. She goes, oh, well, yeah, there's your stuff. Okay. Yeah, you definitely have an account. Yeah, absolutely. My last night was all about making videos. I had to make 3 videos yesterday because some of my students in second and third block have test read aloud as an accommodation. So I made the videos for test read aloud for quiz and for test. Today I just have to make the study guide video for test, which is 1 video. And then I'm going to start grading y'all's paragraph. Doing those grades in Canvas. It kind of stinks if they don't have grade book open for 4 or 9 weeks. So I can start including the grades. I have to keep it all on paper right now. I like to keep mine down to just, paragraph. You're fine. Okay, if you're still writing your paragraph, raise Paul. Okay. those of you who are cold in here now, y'all would have frozen last night. It's so cold in this classroom last night. I had on 2 long sleeve jackets and still was freezing. I went home and could not get warm until I made it to bed where I have 2 comforters. So cold. Yeah, I get too hot when I sleep. I sweat a lot. Yes.
Any type of quiz or anything tomorrow that the kids will be looking over?
They do. They have this for it. We did quiz review yesterday in class. We have quiz review today in class, and there's a video online. I'll show you where it is. Watch. It's on home. Do you like my picture? It's Adrian to me. So here is the review. It has all the answers in it. Here it is popular.
Okay.
I'm fixing to send you the answers to it. Okay.
Okay.
I'll text it right to you. Uh-huh. Yeah, no, they're both off color. But it doesn't bother me enough to switch it, so. I spend so much time on Canvas and Tammy that I don't even care anymore. They get tired of me with my camera. Adrian's the first child, so he gets sick of me and my camera. Why do you think he has that cheesy smile on so many pictures? He's so tired of me. He's the first child. To me, as the youngest child.
My mom says,
Colby and Mila both are like models. Both model look. All right, I need the talking to stop. That makes it very hard for people to think about their writing. Bless you. Does that not look like food or something else? They drink, yeah. Kimber, how much more do you have to go? Hit submit. Okay. Who else is still writing? You're almost done. Ms. Sente, number 40 over there. Did you already hit submit? Okay. Taylor, you finished it? Did you submit? Okay, who's still writing? All right, I came in late, so we're gonna go ahead and start going over the quiz. You guys should ace this thing tomorrow, huh? Run over it twice. All right, so instead of going back and forth, toggling from online to here, the ImageMate, I'm just gonna share screen from ImageMate, okay, guys?
Okay.
Hopefully it'll share screen first time. Nope, of course it didn't. Being helpful. All right. Source one. Hopefully the fact that we've done this twice, you guys should go through and make a 10 out of 10 tomorrow. I'm actually thinking about making this 13 out of 13. You know, those two questions, numbers 3 and 7, each have 2 answers to them. Making each answer worth 1 point and make the thing 13 points. Because if you get a 13 on 13, that's more points possible. And hopefully everybody gets 13 out of 13. It's better for you anyway. Sound cool? We're going to go over the test after we go over the quiz. Okay. Under the Constitution, then, the breadth of the right to vote for both state and national elections was fixed by state law. And at the time of ratification, this meant that many people, including most women, African Americans, Native Americans, and white men whom did not own property could not vote. That's according to Grant Hayden, Hofstra University law professor. So question 1, based on source 1, according to Professor Hayden's statement, who could vote under the Constitution as it was written in 1776? Ricardo. You can look at the board. Would you guys like it if I left that up on the board tomorrow, that timeline? If I accidentally on purpose left that on the board as a resource? Okay, all right. Who could vote in 1776, Ricardo? D, perfect. Reason I don't have a problem with leaving that on the board. On your LEAP test, most of your questions are gonna have to do with sources that they give you. Okay, that is not in the sources they give you on this test tomorrow. Okay, and you kind of need to know that information to answer that question. Okay, not the first question, but another question. Source 2, pay your poll tax now. Deadline January 31st. Vote and protect your rights and privileges. Be ready for every election. That was a sign posted in Mineola, Texas in the mid 50s, maybe even early 60s. Based on source 2, what was the main purpose for implementing poll taxes, Bryson? To control who won the election, to stop African Americans from voting, to stop women from voting, or to allow all citizens the right to vote? What is it? B, to stop African Americans from voting. Source 3, the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. 19th Amendment, the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex, meaning gender. So this goes with question 3. Based on source 3, who gained voting rights with the passing of the 15th and 19th Amendments? African Americans, white males, property owners, women, or Native Americans? What do you think, Maya? Speak up for the old teacher over here. We just found out Miss Tran is only 2 years older than her son. Miss Tran is 2 years older than Adrian. I feel old. AKA I could be Miss Tran's mom. No, Miss Tran's mom is younger than my husband. I was like, a lot older than Miss Tran, apparently. I had no clue. No. My son is 24, dude. I know, he said I'm 28. My son is 24. How would I be 28? All right, Maya. Who gained voting rights to the passing of the 15th and 19th Amendments? Two different groups of people. 15th who got voting rights. Look up on the board if it helps you. A and who? Yes, A and D. African Americans and women. All right, question 4 is going to ask about source 4. So here is a wonderful picture. President Lyndon B. Johnson signing the Voting Rights Act into law. The Voting Rights Act of 1965, signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson, was aimed to overcome legal barriers at the state and local levels that prevented African Americans from voting. The act banned the use of literacy tests and the use of poll taxes in state and local elections. Based on source 4, what was the main impact that the signing of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 had on the voting rights of United States citizens? A, it allowed poor people the right to vote without any obstructions. B, it allowed women the right to vote without any obstructions. C, it allowed African Americans the right to vote without any obstructions. Or D, it allowed Native Americans the right to vote without any obstructions. Kayla. Not B. No. What is it? C. Yes.
Yeah.
C. All right. Number 6. Remember how I told you I need this answer, right? All right. Help us out, Melanie. Based on the sources in your knowledge of social studies, describe 2 ways voting rights of citizens have changed throughout the history of the United States. No, this is the one where you have to give me either 3 bulleted points or 3 sentences. Can we please stop kicking the desk? Thank you, Logan. Look at the board. You just wrote a paragraph on it. How did our voting rights start out? There you go. So you could start out with, at first, only white men who owned property could vote. Yes, it is. Then what? No, I gotta have 2 ways. We don't just jump to, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. Then all white men can vote. Sorry. Then all white men can vote. What do you want to say next? Then after the 15th Amendment passed, African American men can vote. Well, actually, what he just said gave us 2 changes, so that would be enough. You have to tell me at first only white men who own land to vote. Then you have to state 2 changes. Okay, so you either give me 3 sentences or 3 bulleted points. Does everybody understand? I know, but I'm going to say this again for the 3rd time in a row, Logan. You have to first tell me how our voting rights started. Then tell me 2 ways it changed. Here's a table: freedom of speech, religion, press, assembly, petition, right to keep and bear arms in order to maintain a well-regulated militia, no quartering of soldiers, freedom from unreasonable searches and seizures, right to due process of law, freedom from self-incrimination and double jeopardy. Have a seat, Michaela. Right to due process of law, freedom from self-incrimination and double jeopardy. Rights of accused people, including right to a speedy and public trial, right of trial by jury in civil cases, freedom from excessive bail, and freedom from cruel and unusual punishments. Other rights of the people and powers reserved for the states. Which of the following would best title that table? Responsibilities of all citizens, actions to solve community issues, qualities of a good citizen, or rights given to all citizens. Innocente. Your old shoes are kind of hard a little bit.
Oh.
Iridescent blue. Yes, D, rights given to all citizens, because that's the Bill of Rights. 14th Amendment. What rights and privileges, bless you, does the 14th Amendment protect? Select 2 that apply. A, it allowed separate but equal facilities for African Americans. B, it gave freedom to enslaved African Americans. C, all people born in the United States are considered citizens. D, it gave voting rights to all citizens. E, everyone had equal protection under the law. Kimber. E is one of them. Everybody had equal protection under the law. What's the other correct answer? C, C and E, perfect. Number 8. A period in United States history in which African Americans and Native Americans and white people and people of all different colors participated in organized marches, sit-ins, and boycotts is known as what, Logan? B, Civil Rights Movement. Civil Rights Movement. Number 9, Martin Luther King Jr. was the leader of the Civil Rights Movement in the United States. What impact did the Civil Rights Movement have on the culture of the United States? Michaela. Nope, not A. What is it, Allie? B. B. Citizens of the United States have incorporated African American culture in their everyday lives. Guys, the question says culture. There's only one answer that has culture in it. Number 10. A good citizen is responsible, obeys laws and respects authority, contributes to the community, respects the rights of others, learns what's going on in the world, is trustworthy and honest. Which statement best describes the chart? Kayuna, did I say it right? Kayana, did I say it right? Good, I was trying. Hey, yes. Responsibilities people have as a good citizen. Responsibilities, there. Okay. That's the quiz. All right. It is. Hopefully everybody aces it tomorrow. Hunter, are you done with paragraph yet? Okay, now we're going to go over the test. It's long. Guys, listen. Some of the sources that are on the quiz are on the test. You need to pay attention to the questions because the questions are different. Y'all hear me? Yes? Okay. Preamble. I'm not going to read the words on there. Looks pretty, looks great. I can't read that. We just know that's the preamble. Okay. This is the color version. You're not going to have a color version for your test. So sorry, Charlie. Number one question, using source one, which statement best describes why the founding fathers started the preamble of the United States Constitution with "we the people"? A, the government will treat all the people equally and fairly. B, the government will guarantee peace for all the people of the country. C, the government and the Constitution were created by the people and for the people of the United States. Or D, the government will take care of the well-being of the people. What do you think, Michaela? Yes, let's see. By the people and for the people. All right, source two, branches of the government. Legislative branch creates the laws. Remember we said legis means law. Executive branch enforces the laws. Judicial branch interprets the laws. As part of the newly created Constitution of the United States, the founding fathers created three branches of government known as the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. Using source two, what was the main reason for the founding fathers to create three separate branches of government? Main reason. There's more than one correct answer. One is better than the other. A, it allowed each branch to make laws for the country. B, the three branches made it impossible for one person or branch to have all the power. C, it created a system of checks and balances. Or D, to make sure that the rights of all citizens are not ignored or disallowed. Bryson. B, they did not want tyranny. It is B, monarchy. They didn't want anything like King George. The three branches made it impossible for one person or branch to have all the power. They didn't want anything like what King George had done. Okay. All right, Bill of Rights. Now, we've always called them Amendment 1, Amendment 2, Amendment 3, all that. Here they're called Article 1, Article 2, Article 3. Article is just a word that means amendment. It's the same thing. Everybody hears that? Yeah. So when you see this Monday, we're going to try to go back over this tomorrow too, but I don't know because honestly, the test is so long. Article just means amendment. Okay, same thing. Have a seat. Number 3, using source 3, which statement explains why a Bill of Rights was included into the Constitution of the United States? A, create laws that gives the federal government power over the nation. B, allowed citizens of the United States the right to vote. C, limit the federal government's power over the nation. D, protect the rights of every citizen in the United States. Haley. Not B. Skyona. D, protect the rights of every citizen in the United States. This one also asks about source 3. Based on source 3, what are some rights that are protected by the Constitution? Select to that apply. Must pay taxes to support the government. Freedom of religion. Cannot be searched without a warrant. Soldiers can stay in the homes of U.S. citizens, sorry. A person may be trialed only by a judge. Select 2, Melanie. B and C, freedom of religion and cannot be searched without a warrant. D is wrong because its soldiers cannot stay in the homes of U.S. soldiers.
That's what I know. I was like,
That's the one where the hint is my son. Quartering of soldiers. That's why I put the picture of Adrian up there. There's already a picture of Adrian saluting the flag. But the other picture is supposed to remind you of quartering of soldiers. No quartering of soldiers, according to the Bill of Rights. And that last question, the person may be tried only by a jury, not a judge. Okay. This next one has to do with source 4. Source 4. 15th Amendment. The right of citizens in the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. The 19th Amendment. The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex, meaning gender. You got to listen closely to the questions about source 4. Based on source 4, what is an amendment to the Constitution? A, it's an addition to the Constitution that may change a current law or add new laws to the Constitution. B, it creates new responsibilities for citizens of the United States. C, it allows citizens to voice their grievances to the government. Or D, it creates checks and balances for all the branches of the government. Allie. A. 6, based on source 4, what was the main purpose of enacting the 19th Amendment into law? 19th Amendment. A, to allow African Americans the right to vote. B, to declare poll taxes and literacy tests illegal. C, to give voting rights to all citizens. Or D, to allow women the right to vote. Kayla. D, to allow women the right to vote. All right, the other source that we looked at about Woolworths, I paid attention more in third block than first block. The other Woolworths was in North Carolina. This one is Canal Street. Anybody know where Canal Street is?
no.
New Orleans. This is the one in New Orleans. The other Woolworths that we looked at was in North Carolina. Woolworths are closed down around the country. They've been closed down for a long time. Canal Street was the city's main shopping area in the 1960s. However, Jim Crow laws allowed lunch counters to refuse service to African Americans, which made up 40% of New Orleans population. So about half the population of New Orleans was Black. This is in the 1960s. On September 9th, 1960, white and Black members of New Orleans chapter of Congress of Racial Equality, CORE, defied these segregation laws at Woolworth's lunch counter. The students were arrested for holding the sit-in at the Canal Street location. Based on source 1, how did African Americans try to solve the community issue of segregation in New Orleans? A, by voting. B, by obeying local laws. C, by protesting. D, by serving on a jury. Joanna. C, by protesting. Good job. All right. School segregation outlawed. This is from the Baton Rouge newspaper, 1954. Okay. Segregation, in other words, separating children's schools by skin color, was required in all these states. Required.
allowed in these 3 states and not allowed in all these states. So I want to read a little bit of this article. You're not going to need to read the article for the question, but I think it's very interesting. Chief Justice, that would be on the Supreme Court, reads historic decision. Vote was unanimous. Ruling does not end segregation at once. Further hearings set to decide how to halt, which means stop, practice. The Supreme Court ruled today that the states of the nation do not have the right, and I'm not going to say this word, to separate African American and white pupils in different public schools. By unanimous 9-0 vote, the High Court held that such segregation of the races is unconstitutional. So the Supreme Court in 1954 said it is wrong to separate children in schools according to race. But check out the rest of it. Chief Justice Warren read the historic decision to a packed but hushed gallery of spectators nearly 2 years after African American residents of 4 states and the District of Columbia went before the court to challenge the principle of segregation. But the ruling does not end segregation at once. So they said it was wrong to segregate schools in 1954, but they didn't end it.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
What?
The mean.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Children went to 2 different schools according to their skin color in all these states. It says meet.
Oh, mean.
Maine. That's the abbreviation for Maine. Okay. So segregation was how these schools were run in all these states. Get your computer. Okay. These 3 states, segregation was allowed. That means probably not all the schools were separated by skin color. And then in these states, segregation did not occur. Okay. Now, that's source 2. What I've shown you and told you about Adrian and Tamia might help you on this question when we get to question 9. Okay. But look at question 8. Based on source 2, which region of the United States would be most impacted by the end of segregation in schools? Now, the way you would think of this, where was there segregation? Because where there was segregation, when that ended, that would have the most impact, wouldn't it? So where would it be most impacted? Maya, bless you. Not the East. Allie. D, the South. There was so much segregation in the South.
Because if you remember, it said that.
Look at where all the segregation was. It's in the South. So when segregation ended, these states' schools were most affected. Okay. Now, this is where what I've told you about what Adrian and Tamia have faced, that might help you towards this question. Using source 2, how can a good citizen contribute to the democracy of the United States? This would apply to 1960s. This would apply to 2021. Select 2 that apply. Being informed about the issue of segregation, becoming a leader, being persistent in informing people about the issues, advocating for everyone's rights, pursuing life, liberty, and happiness. Which 2 would be the best choices to be a good citizen contributing to the democracy of the United States? Michaela.
I think A
A.
and what were the other ones?
Right here.
I can't really see them.
Become a leader, being persistent in informing people about the issues, advocating for everyone's rights, pursuing life, liberty, and happiness. What was it?
D.
D. Advocating for everyone's rights. Okay, it's A and D. Those were things that people could do in 1965. Those are things that people could still do today. Everybody understand? Okay. Yep, it is. Lots of sources. The reason I copied all the sources for everybody is the fact that there were 4 sources, 2 pages of questions. 4 more sources, 2 more pages of question. Oh my gosh. Source 3, Civil Rights Act of 1964. Under the Civil Rights Act of 1964, segregation on the grounds of race, religion, or national origin was banned at all places of public accommodation, including courthouses, parks, restaurants, theaters, sports arenas, and hotels. No longer could African Americans and other minorities be denied service simply based on the color of their skin. So based on the Civil Rights Act of 1964, what impact did that have on the United States? A, the Civil Rights Act allowed all citizens of the United States the right to vote. It banned segregation of citizens based on race, religion, or origin of birth. It permitted store owners to only serve customers based on race, religion, or country of birth. It increased the number of protests against segregation in the United States. What's the best answer, Logan? B, ban segregation. Okay. Hmm?
Did you say white?
Lights?
When you said what?
B, Civil Rights Act. B.
Oh,
All right. There is the March on Washington in August 1963. So that picture we've seen a couple times with Martin Luther King turning back towards the photographer and he's standing at the Washington Mall. This was taken either minutes or an hour or so before that. That's when they were marching towards the Washington Mall. Okay. That's the same day. All right. On August 28, 1963, an interracial assembly of more than 200,000 people, interracial just means involving different races, gathered peaceably in the shadow of the Lincoln Memorial to demand equal justice for all citizens under the law. The crowd was uplifted by the emotional strength and prophetic quality of the address given by Martin Luther King Jr. that came to be known as the I Have a Dream speech, in which he emphasized his faith that all men someday would be brothers. Based on source 4, what was the purpose of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom? To protest for equal voting rights for African Americans, to protest for equal justice under the law for African Americans, to protest against segregation on buses based on race, to protest for African Americans to have freedom of speech. What do you think, Kaylee? Hunter, have you finished your paragraph? Did you hit submit? Okay. Let me put this up real quick for you.
keep the question?
Absolutely. Not A. Good try though. Logan.
C.
No? No? Kayla, gotta have you sit down. Kayla, gotta have you sit down. Kind of thick as mud, my dear. What do you think, Innocente? What? It's not D, it's B.
I said B.
B, perfect, yes. Equal justice, okay? I had to look back over it myself too. It's right here. Equal justice. Okay? It's B, equal justice. Number 12, based on source 4, what impact did the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom have on the Civil Rights era? African Americans could not be discriminated against based on race. Segregation ended in the United States. It led to the famous I Have a Dream speech. African Americans were able to work at any job. What do you think, Joanna? What is it? I couldn't hear you. I wish it was B. Unfortunately not. What do you think, Allie?
C.
C. It led to the famous I Have a Dream speech.
It said that yesterday in oh, and it said it, yeah, anyway.
It's a test that never ends, y'all. This I think is page 11.
Oh, there's 25 pages.
24, yeah.
Oh,
Establishing a government. The delegates debated long and hard over the contents of the Constitution. Some of them wanted a document that gave much power to the federal government. Others wanted to protect the rights of the states and called for a weak central government. Delegates from large states claimed their states should have greater representation in Congress than the small states. But small state delegates demanded equal representation in Congress. The delegates finally reached agreement on a new constitution on September 17th, 1787. The Constitution provided for a two-house legislature, a House of Representatives and a Senate. Representation in the House was based on population in order to satisfy the large states. All states received equal representation in the Senate, which pleased the small states. All right. Number 13. Which statement best describes why the Founding Fathers created a legislature with a House of Representatives and a Senate as part of a new government as seen in Source 1? A. Each state had equal and fair representation in the federal government. B. Larger states gained more power in the federal government. C. Smaller states gained more power in the federal government. D. They created a system of checks and balances. What do you think, Melanie? What is it? No. No. I honestly thought that at first too, but no. Allie? A. Each state had an equal and fair representation in the federal government. We know that because it says
right there
all states
are equal representation.
So it talks about representation in the House for large states, equal representation in the Senate for small states. So it's that one. We got enough time to do source 2. Colonies and the empire. Before the Revolution, Americans benefited from being part of the British Empire. England's command of the seas gave American merchants access to markets in Europe, the Mediterranean, and the Caribbean. Chief American exports, salted fish, rice, wheat, grain, and tobacco, were carried throughout the world by American ships. England's growing industries made manufactured goods available to American consumers. While the American Revolution freed American merchants from British restrictions, it also denied Americans British protection and made it difficult for American traders to trade with Europe. Before the Revolution, 75% of American exports went to England, Ireland, and the West Indies. After the revolution, Britain and her colonies would buy only 10% of America's exports. Based on source 2, declaring independence from Britain had what effects on the colonies? The colonies had to begin to manufacture goods. British taxes increased the cost of goods. It became very difficult to trade goods with Europe. American ships had less goods to transport. Guyana. C, became very difficult to trade goods with Europe. Okay, this nice, pretty colored picture will be black and white on your chest, and it won't look very clear. You'll be able to see a blob for him, a dark blob for her with something white in her hand. That's about all you'll be able to see on your picture. That's a baby, and you'll kind of be able to tell that on your test, but you certainly won't have a color picture. Yeah. The atmosphere, class. The atmosphere after the revolution was unruly. Many people, whether they were actively loyalist or not, were persecuted by the patriots. Individuals were harassed, physically assaulted, homes were looted, and property was destroyed or stolen. This treatment was given not only to those who were actively loyalists, but to others who did not seem patriot enough. Many of these people fled America and went to Canada. Based on source 3, why were loyalists leaving the colonies? They were being persecuted by other citizens that had different beliefs. They did not agree with the direction the United States was going. They wanted to make a new life for themselves. There were no farms left to grow crops. Bryson. What's the answer? What's the answer? 15. What's the answer? A. They were being persecuted by other citizens that had different beliefs. Bless you. We got through 15 of 24 or 26. So we got over halfway. We will see you tomorrow, Megan. Bye.